Welcome back, Karibu 2025. And without dilly-dally, let's get right into the video. So today's video, I'm going to be connecting consequences and somatics. So walk with me as I take you through the perspectives I've garnered so far into how these two relate. So first of all, consequences. I've made a recent video on consequences, basically saying that the way we have been sold consequences has been from the standpoint of fear. For example, the way being a Kenyan and the way we are told about consequences. You shall know that there are consequences to your actions. Today you will know that there are consequences to your actions. You see, that kind of energy, that's how most of us have been fed consequences from the standpoint of fear. And that's one thing I think Kenyans really know how to do, kuziana woga, like selling each other fear. So consequences defined basically means the result of your actions or the result of an inaction. So when you look at it clearly, consequences does not have to have a negative connotation. It's just a matter of how you're perceiving it. And most of us perceive consequences from two main standpoints, our fears and our anxieties. Let's define these two. A fear is the result, or a fear is the result of an actual present danger. Actual present danger, that is a fear. An anxiety is the result of a future perceived danger. Future, it's not happening right now. It's something that you're projecting. And most of this projection comes from your past experiences and your past traumas. Trauma is simply any form of unresolved conflict. Any form of unresolved conflict. So you might have, maybe for example, you want to go to a mall, but your past experience with that mall, maybe you got mugged outside that mall. So your body and your mind and your whole being has a visceral reaction towards going to that mall because it remembers the way that negative experience happened, that experience happened to you. So you will be more resistant towards going to that mall again because your body is projecting this anxiety of like it might happen again, or this might actualize again, and it wasn't a good feeling in your body, so you don't want it to happen again. But likewise, as a consequence, an example of a very simple consequence is you choose to go to bed early, and the consequence is you might wake up earlier feeling more energized and more refreshed. That is a consequence. But you see, it does not have any negative connotation. But the problem is where we use these two criteria, fears and anxieties, to make decisions and to live our lives without our conscious awareness. Because most of us, we interlap the fears and anxieties. We think they are one thing. We think an anxiety is an actual present danger, whereas it is not. Most of us, the way we are living today in our day and age, we have less fears and more anxieties because if you look at just your day, your breakdown of your day and how it goes, you will see that there are very few instances where you're in actual present danger, but you're overly stressed and overly in your head because of the anxieties, the perceived dangers. You're walking in town, you're perceiving you're going to get mugged. You're perceiving your phone is going to be come for. So you see, all of these are anxieties, and they're going to influence what you're going to do or not going to do. So while the basis of the consequence was, let's put it in context. Let us interrogate our thinking when it comes to the consequences of the action or the inaction. Let us interrogate those fears and anxieties to actually find out what is motivating us to move or not move. And this connects with somatics because now somatics is dealing with the body and the way we handle trauma. And as I said, trauma is any form of unresolved conflict. What the definition of somatic practices are types. These are types of mind and body therapy that use internal awareness to help people become more aware of their bodies and emotions. The goal is to help people feel more in control of their bodies and lives. The definition of a somatic experience or somatic experiencing is tuning into your body's wisdom to access deeper healing. Do you see how if you just the awareness of what somatics is kind of interrelates with how we think about consequences and choices? In the sense, your anxieties and your fears all stem from your past experiences, i.e. your past traumas. So you looking at your past experiences and your past traumas from the viewpoint of somatics can really be a game changer for you. There was this snippet from, I will link it over here somewhere. This was basically what it was reading. Trauma is held in our bodies. It is cellular and it is somatic. Think about it. You experience a situation where you cannot defend yourself. That is a hijacked fight response. Or you experience a situation where you cannot run. That is a hijacked flight response. The autonomic nervous system the autonomic nervous system's desire to act was not completed. That's trauma. It was unresolved conflict. You wanted to do something, you were not in a position to do it, and that caused trauma, and that is registered in your body and in your cells. That's why somatics is so effective in discharging this stuck energy. So looking at it from that standpoint of like, now I'm incorporating somatics or somatic practices, of which there are so many resources. I've actually just scratched the surface in terms of just finding out what somatics is all about. I'll link in the description below some of the resources I've come across that I think are helpful and you can start on. And I wrote this about somatics, or the last part of what I've just come from reading you. The autonomic nervous system's desire to act was not completed. That's trauma. And remember, trauma is any form of unresolved conflict. That's why somatics is so effective to discharge this stuck energy. And this is what I gleaned from this. Could it be that every time you get an urge or an impulse to do something you genuinely want or desire to do, and you know maybe it's good for you or like will make you feel better or worthwhile, i.e. talking to your crush, and you don't do it, that is in fact you self-inflicting trauma onto yourself because of your perceived future fears or anxieties, as we had said. So it becomes a double homicide because you're giving yourself trauma and you're stressing yourself. So your body is experiencing the trauma, that is reliving the past trauma, and at the same time it's under stress, trying to manage you doing whatever it is you need to do while at the same time experiencing the traumas. It becomes a cycle to the point where you don't even trust yourself to be real with yourself, to confide in yourself, so your body takes the alternative action, or which is contrary to your well-being but is accurate to your self-story, in effectively lying to yourself, and a kind of selective pain ritual that most likely is cathartic to you, and you feed yourself with trauma and stress while simultaneously feeding your psychosis with a disserviceable outcome, an inaccurate self-story. And do you know what your mind does? The more what you feed it is what it will give back to you. Gigo, garbage in, garbage out. The same with value in, value out, vivo. So you feed it trauma and stress, and it will give you more trauma and stress to focus on. It's a vicious cycle. So just looking at it from those two standpoints, looking at taking your choices and your consequences and incorporating this somatic way of looking at it. For example, after interrogating your concept, the reasoning behind why you should take this route or not, and you find out that there's a trauma attached to why you want to move this way or that way, and you now take that and deal with it from a somatic point of view, I think that can be a very freeing life, a very freeing like perspective to move from. And an example of interrogating a choice or you choosing to do something or you choosing not to do something is, for example, you choose not to talk to your crush. You need to ask yourself why. And maybe when you interrogate your why, you find it's from an anxiety of a past rejection that you had. And maybe now you're projecting that this person, this love interest of yours, will reject you again. Why? Because of a past trauma. It's not something that has happened because you have not done it. You've not talked to them to even know if they're interested in you or not. In short, you've kind of like self-rejected because of a past rejection. So now incorporating now somatics will be now you understand that even your body's resistance to this is because of the way that rejection felt so bad to you. It felt heavy, and it felt, for lack of a better word, very draining. So you don't want to feel that again. So one way you can do it is by incorporating somatic practices to kind of release that energy and retell yourself story. When you retell yourself story by going back to that experience and now shifting it from the point of view of you are not the victim now, you are in charge, in terms of like you had a part to play in this experience. It might not have been the best experience, or it might not have come out the way you wanted, but you had a choice, you made it with the knowledge that you had at the time, and it was okay. And now you're releasing all that energy of stuckness, of rejection, of self-rejection, so that you can allow yourself to approach this new thing, this new crush, new person, with a renewed energy, with opportunity, with curiosity. You get it? Now you're leaving your baggage behind, for lack of a better word. You're leaving your baggage behind so that you can move forward having healed. And healing is a process. So this was just as an example, but through it all, there are resources to doing the somatic work. And again, I will link them in the description box below. But through it all, what I usually say is this: be very kind to yourself and give yourself grace. And by grace, I mean give yourself time and treat yourself like a child. Because there's no way you have been moving, carrying these traumas and reacting throughout your whole life, and you think you're going to be done with these things in a day or in a week or in a month. No. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes active work. It takes intentionality. So, yes, that's what I wanted to add. And that is what I'll leave for today. Feed on that, sit in this, rewatch this video as many times as you want, like, subscribe, and I will expound more on the somatics in later videos. But for now, keep on interacting with the content and check out the description below for other forms of content or other forms of resources that you can get to feed into this. Catch you in the next one.